Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with a midweek update in the world of cannabis. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learn something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos, and there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. Now, I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up that you believe are best positioned for success in the long run, and then take advantage whenever you feel ready. We're going to start with this good news out of International Cannabis Business Conference, as Germany expected to introduce long-awaited legalization measure in 2 weeks. And so we don't have to wait until May 1st possibly, and it doesn't say Germany could. Germany is expected to introduce long-awaited legalization measure. And so what's this from? During a live stream episode of 420 Canna Talk featuring German governing coalition members and drug policy spokespersons of the Social Democratic Party, Dirk Heidenblut and Carmen Vig, I probably butchered those, my bad, but the lawmakers announced that a long-awaited adult use legalization bill measure would. So unlike a lot of the U.S. mainstream outlets that always talk about what could happen, we love to see that they're at least saying they would be formally introduced in 2 weeks. It would be nice if the draft law would be presented on April 20th, 2023. Now, it doesn't say that it will be on that day, but does seem to say that it would be formally introduced in 2 weeks. So we will keep tabs on this, but this is said by Carmen Vig during a live stream translated from German to English. So do pause to read to learn more about the unfortunate developments we got in the last week that saw Germany completely backpedal from their full-scale legalization plans that they've been working on for the last 2 years. And while no doubt this is still a step in the right direction, it begs the question, why? And while I did figure this out in my last week's video, and I invite you to go check that out if you haven't, the only reason they give is, for reasons of EU law, comprehensive legalization is obviously not feasible in the short term. But what they don't tell you is that their interpretation of EU law and international law follows their belief that what the UN says overrides the national sovereignty of EU countries and their ability to change or reform their own drug laws however they see fit. Because of that outdated treaty that racist Harry J. Anslinger in 1961 forced all countries to sign on to conform with the views that America had on drugs, and now all the countries are stuck sort of in this treaty. Now, it's in the best interest of all these countries to want to get out of this treaty, but just wanted to point out that is why the backpedal, but they don't necessarily explicitly put it here. And so here, if you want to pause to read, now I'm not going to make you go pull up the link if you don't want to, and then you can pause to read this next little snippet here. Otherwise, of course, the link is in the description. But so we're going to be looking out for Germany later on this month, but I wanted to touch on this story. NBA will let players invest in cannabis industry and promote cannabis brands under new bargaining deal. And so now, according to Sharania, NBA players will no longer be prohibited for cannabis under the new 7-year collective bargaining agreement, so 7 years of breathing room. While cannabis has been removed from the anti-drug testing program, a process that began during the 2019-2020 season. Say what? It takes 3 years of what? Meetings on meetings, confirmation on confirmation, approval on approval to take a plant from not allowed to allowed. At least the day has arrived, and they've reached a tentative agreement pending ratification by players and team govs, but the details won't be released until a term sheet is finalized. So still early, not finalized yet, but love to see it, especially out of sports, one of the few meritocracies left where the best of the best can rise to the top. And then just wanted to add this as a Cresco Labs shareholder. Not sure how much of a role Charles Bachtel had or whether it was just this board member, but at the same time, this has been in play for a long time, and love to see that Cresco helped in getting this done. As Michelle Roberts, a one-time head of the NBA Players Association who also joined the board of the major cannabis company Cresco Labs in 2020, previously predicted that a formal change to codify the policy could come soon, and this has been in the works. Love to see it happening. And with that, just wanted to share this one from First Sports. As former Colts punter Pat McAfee wants NFL to follow the NBA and stop testing athletes for cannabis use. This would be amazing. Does that mean anyone's going to listen to Pat McAfee? Probably not, but we love to see more voices in sports speak out, use common sense arguments, and highlight if the NBA is doing it, why not let the NFL, especially when cannabis is huge for recovery and health, right? And so with that, on to some state news. New Mexico politicalreport.com, recreational cannabis brings in more than $300 million in its first year in New Mexico. I'm sure obviously the governor is happy to see that, and she makes her statement down here if you wanted to pause to read what she has to say. We're just going to relay some of the other little snippet facts down here. Since April 2022, New Mexico issued about 2,000 cannabis licenses across the state, including 633 dispensaries, 351 producers, 415 micro producers, and 507 manufacturers. In the first year of adult use cannabis, sales have been on a consistent trajectory, with March 2023 showing the largest adult use cannabis sales so far, with more than 32 million total in sales, while med cannabis sales are still active, with March sales totaling about 15 million, which is comparable to the previous months of 13 to 15 million. So more here if you want to pause to read, but obviously New Mexico reaping in the benefits of ending cannabis prohibition and loving all the tax dollars, jobs, and benefits that this brings. And so with that new cannabis ventures, cannabis sales slow in most states in February, which is to be expected as Jan and Feb are typically slower months following the record-breaking December as people buy for the holidays and end-of-year celebrations. But the good news is, looking forward, is that we typically see 3 spikes a year, and that comes in March and April as people spend more for 420 holiday. That comes in the middle of summer as people are enjoying the nice weather and voting for legal cannabis with their dollars, and then again in December. And so, not going to go through this whole thing, but you can pause to read a little snippet here and then a bit about Eastern markets, but just going to pause on each market so that you can take a look. And so this is Florida. State declining in January, but jumping back up in February. But keep in mind, Florida is medical only still. And so that's Florida. Illinois, you can pause to read. And of course, you can grab the link below if you just want to pull this up and go through it yourself. Maryland, still medical only, but they are launching July 1st, I believe, their adult use finally. And that's going to be a massive spike, hopefully allowing for more adult use or combined sales with Maryland. Massachusetts, you can pause to read. And then Michigan, one of the states that did jump up quite nicely in February. You can pause to read. And then Pennsylvania, still medical only market, but hopefully maybe by 2024 they can get that done and launch their adult use. And so with that, Western markets, you can pause to read this little snippet here. But then with that, Arizona, you can pause to read. We've got California. No doubt some of these more mature Western markets are probably facing a lot of illicit cannabis during this time of year, which takes away from legal sales. But the good thing to point out is after February 2021, now this was helped by stimulus checks, and we don't want any more of that because of the inflation, but saw a massive jump there. And then even last year, Feb 2022, jumped up. Not as big, but jumped up quite a bit March, April, and then into May. So we'll see what California ends up doing. But Colorado, another example, just to highlight February 2022. Lull down from December, seeing a record-breaking March, and then sadly, no months last year ended up beating March. We'll see if Colorado can set a new peak, though, this year going forward. Well, we've got Nevada. Pause to read. One of the more struggling markets, but good to see them sort of trending back up. Hopefully they will for March and April. And then Oregon, the last of them, I do believe. And yeah, so that is it. Full link below, of course, if you wanted to grab through it and go. Well, we got this one from Marijuana Moment, highlighting why Missouri's happy they did not wait to launch their adult use program, as Missouri's cannabis legalization has already created thousands of new jobs, state data shows. And is that not something you would want to be proud of to provide to your constituents if you were a lawmaker that was working in the best interest of your people? It's enormous job growth, and it really happens quite quickly. So we are seeing customers and partners in Missouri aggressively and actively hiring. And so again, I think this is a success story that should be plastered across all mainstream outlets. And this is from that article, Missouri sees surge in cannabis jobs after legalization vote. And so just wanted to feature this as there's a lot of detail here. Now I wanted to point this out, not sure how I feel. Anyone who wants to work in this industry, including owners, must get an agent ID badge through the state, in which a background check, I mean, I guess it'd be like being a cop in a police union or something like that, but it just seems like one way that they can track and put cannabis users in a single excluded box versus, putting them as business owners in any other sort of industry that would be distribution of medicine. Anyway, just thinking out loud. But a lot more details here if you just wanted to pause and go through it. But seems like no doubt Missouri is very happy. And Missouri is on pace to become a $1 billion market in their first year, it seems like. I don't know about their first year. I just added that. But $1 billion markets like Michigan, Illinois, and Massachusetts employ anywhere between 30,000 and 50,000 workers in the cannabis industry, Barber said. And if they don't hit $1 billion this year, no doubt Missouri is going to crush and surpass $1 billion by next year, no doubt. And with that, this one from CBSnews.com from Florida. Florida recreational cannabis proposal tops 635,000 signatures, which we love to hear. This is closer to the 891,589 signatures needed to put the proposal on the 2024 ballot. And so at 635,961, I loosely did this, but they need like a little over 250,000 more signatures. But I do recall that it wasn't that long ago that they had collected 420,000 already. Might have been a few months back, and now they're already at 635. And so love to see that. Keep going, Florida. Do not stop now. Well, I got this one at a CT Insider. Connecticut's chief state's attorney reviewed 4,248 pending cannabis cases, dropping charges on 1,562 defendants. And so it's possible that outside of this number, they had more than just cannabis cases, which is unfortunate, but good to see 1,562 defendants at least get their lives back, in the sense that they no longer have a criminal record in the form of simple cannabis possession, which is the right thing to do, and some of the benefits their constituents get when you end cannabis prohibition. So you can pause to read or grab the full link below from CT Insider. Well, this is another one from CT Insider, but because it was the second article I went to look at, it's behind a paywall. But this one, I don't think it comes off as good as they think it does, because they're happy to announce $59 million paid so far in Connecticut cannabis licenses and lottery fees. The majority will pay for as yet undefined social equity initiatives, which really just sounds like a sad New York scam waiting to happen. And I have no doubt the regulators and CT Insider are probably happy to publish this because it makes it look like social equity works. But the way I view this is that Connecticut just fleeced its citizens for $59 million. And so a little bit more on this that was a snippet I was able to copy and paste before the paywall kind of blocked me, but the state received a total of $59.6 million as of Wednesday. Now get this, most of that, $48.5 million, comes from license fees paid by social equity applicants, making it seem like there's so many social equity applicants who were harmed by the war on drugs and are getting first dibs. But then this is how they write this. Of that $48.5 million, $33 million was paid by the 11 cultivators so far licensed in disproportionately impacted areas, which would likely be the MSOs or any single state operators operating within Connecticut. And so actually, that means only $15.5 million came from social equity applicants. So it's just, why do they write it so weirdly? I don't understand. But the whole point is to say that whether it's MSOs, single state operators, and those harmed by the war on drugs that are trusting Connecticut to work in their best interest, we know that all social equity does is make everyone equally poor. And so Connecticut, balls in your court, please don't fuck this up as badly as New York. Because for our weekly laugh out of the Office of Cannabis Management, breaking, OCM is proud to announce the approval of a record-breaking 99 CAURD licenses. Oh, wow, but get this, the iron law of woke projection never misses, because they share, we've been working tirelessly to ensure our state can access the many products and opportunities that our 4 legal cannabis dispensaries has to offer, and we're proud to continue our mission of making everyone equally poor in cannabis. They are doing that because while there's only 4 legal dispensaries open and they might be opening up their 5th, in the past weeks there's been talks of that, the reality is there's 1,400 illegal dispensaries open, and there might actually be more, which we're going to get to in a moment. But on to that, wanted to share this story from Brad Rossino if you're interested. Again, just highlighting the incompetence of the New York State regulators. New story. For the second time, New York State Cannabis has failed to meet its deadline to produce a social and economic equity plan. Go figure. And are you even surprised at this point? Main question has to be, when is there going to be consequences? The MRTA guidelines are not suggestions, rather statutory requirements, said Senator Cooney. And so yes, the bigger surprise is, how do these idiots still have a job? And how have they not been replaced by more competent people that can start the desperate work that's needed to help rebuild New York from the ground up? Because Lord knows it fucking needs it. And so the social and economic equity plan is expected to do all this, what the OCM could not get done. You cannot make this shit up. And so sad what is happening to New York. Of course, we laugh at it in hopes that it will get better at some point. But last thing to relay, up in smoke. At 2-year mark, unlicensed cannabis threatens to kill legal industry. Why is that? Well, because of the idiots in charge. Since then, the numbers have indeed moved, but in the wrong direction since the announcement that they were going to crack down on illicit shops, as the estimated 1,400 illicit shops at that time have now ballooned to 1,700 illicit shops citywide now. Fuck, man. It seems like the crackdown was more bark than bite after all, no doubt. All thanks to this fucking idiot who apparently spent $200 million on yesterday with the cop presence, press and all that. Spent $200 million on that day alone. Biggest fucking waste of money on a precedent that will hopefully be used, against the other side too in the future, to try and balance out the shit show that is happening at the moment. But that is it. I digress. On to some better news. So thanks, Tom Engel. The Arkansas House Judiciary Committee approved a bill to clarify that medical cannabis patients can obtain concealed carry licenses for firearms. So love seeing Arkansas standing up for the rights and the Second Amendment rights of their citizens as well, and highlighting that if you use medical cannabis, that does not make you a criminal, much like the White House, sadly, and the Biden administration wants to claim based on their sad actions in the last few years. And so with that, this one from Reason.com, essentially highlighting something we never would have expected, but diehard prohibitionist Mitch McConnell's state just became the 38th to approve medical cannabis. So huge victory. Again, more on this if you're just interested in learning how this came to be. The big win for the plant, but sad reality for those in Kentucky. They're going to have to wait until 2025, almost 2 years of the status quo and a lot of opioid overdoses, unfortunately, until they get legal access to a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative. And so, while it's sad they have to wait, let's pick this turtle apart a little bit while we're on it. And the good news is, what forced their hand was the will of the people, baby. And so McConnell is a champion of the state's hemp industry, and we can thank McConnell for the farm bill, the loophole in it, and the unfortunate flooding of Delta 8 THC into illicit markets. All thanks to the loophole that McConnell allowed to go through the farm bill. And then last year, he bragged about blocking a bill that would have made it easier for state licensed suppliers of medical cannabis to obtain banking services, which he described as liberal nonsense. That has nothing to do with liberals. Not nonsense at all. And again, could have been better if you worded it as a banking bill that's related to cannabis as opposed to a cannabis bill that's related to banking. But man, this guy's a fucking loser. And the 81-year-old drug warrior is also opposed to a spending rider that bars the Justice Department from interfering with the state's medical cannabis program. He basically barred the citizens of D.C. to get what they voted for in 2014. But here's the good news. A few years ago, Senator Cory Gardner described McConnell's dismay upon hearing that Utah voters seemed ready to approve medical cannabis, which they did November 28. McConnell looks at me and goes, "Utah?" Gardner recalled in an interview with Roll Call just this terrified look, and he says that Republican Orrin Hatch walks up, and Mitch looks at Orrin and says, "Orrin, is Utah really going to legalize cannabis?" And Orrin Hatch folds his hands, looks down at his feet, and says, "First tea, then coffee, now this." And so it is highlighting that the will of the people will win in the end, as long as the people wake up and start making enough noise in the near term. And you can't make this shit up. Had to share this story, so thank you, Sheila Vicaria, for sharing this. People often want to stop at drug decriminalization because they have concerns about regulation and legalization. Yeah, if you want the black market to flourish, it's exactly what you do. You stop at decriminalization. Excuse me, but how is prohibition in the hands of cartels and law enforcement working out for us? At least regulations can be reformed, as a California police union director is charged with importing opioids, including fentanyl. I'm tired of saying this, but you can't fucking make this shit up. It's so annoying, proving that America might be even one of the most corrupt countries in the world. And then on top of that is that anytime the government says something is in the best interest of your safety or public health, we know it's bullshit by now, and especially when you consider that drug like rehab organizations, police union organizations, law enforcement organizations around the U.S. lobby to keep cannabis illegal. Why do they do that? So they can keep the status quo alive and continue making a bit of cash on the side, when we know damn well that legalizing for rec and med use reduces opioid overdoses by 25%. So what's killing more people? Especially when she's making this conscious decision to live this double life. Like, she deserves 25 to life going forward, because there's definitely death on her hands. And so with that, light news week in terms of MSOs, but very timely written article by Ben A. Smith for the Dales Report. Cannabis MSOs 2023 debt cliff concerns a little overblown. Most MSO debt matures in 2024 and beyond. So if you're looking for a breath of fresh air and we're concerned that any of the MSOs you've invested in might go out of business in the next few years, chances are they have a little bit more breathing room than was expected, or than what you've heard from some more bearish MSO investors. And so here you can read a bit more to understand what a debt cliff is, but then luckily debt cliff concerns that some prominent industry investors have alluded to may be overblown, at least in context to 2023. That is not to say that principal repayment concerns don't exist, but the plurality of debt for the top operators is set to mature in 2024 and beyond. And so that's positive, especially breath of fresh air for the tier 1 MSOs. And note, the table does not include promissory notes under $10 million or future MSO lease liabilities. And so with that, starting from the top, just trying to squeeze as much as I can in here. So this will be Ascend Wellness, Air Wellness, Columbia Care, Cresco, and Cureleaf. And then we've got the amount, the debt, and then when their debt is maturing. And then we'll scroll down, and the next bit will be Green Thumb, all the way down to Verano at the bottom. And then, of course, you can grab the link below and just read this yourself. But Green Thumb, TerraSend, Truly, Verano, the amount of debt, who it's out to, and when it is due to pay back. And so the one exception was Columbia Care, who had 13% senior secured debt notes due May 14th, 2023. But that was until the company announced that the principal repayment on the notes would be delaying by extending the maturity date of its notes to $38.2 million, and now they owe this back May 14th, 2024. And so that is, again, more breathing room for the potential deal to go through by the end of June, June 30th, 2023, for that Cresco and Columbia Care deal to go through. Of course, more down here if you wanted to read, but of course you can grab the full link. And so with that, a few other stories before we head off. MJ Biz Daily sharing that Germany imports a record amount of cannabis, but growth still slows. And so they're bringing in a small amount, but a little bit more of a small amount every year. Medical and scientific cannabis imports in Germany have been increasing every year since 2017, when the country brought in only 1,780 kilograms. And so, again, very small numbers, slowly but surely working their way up, as they like to be very cautious. And so a bit more here if you wanted to pause to read. And then I'm just going to bring you down to this little snippet. And so in 2022, nearly 25,000 kilos of cannabis were imported into Germany for medical and scientific purposes, an increase of 19% over the 20,700 kgs in 2021. And in 2021, the imports rose 77% over 2020. And so they're not rising at massive amount, or they're not rising in massive numbers, but essentially enough to point to Germany and say, okay, their medical program is growing slowly but surely. How much more growth can we see out of their eventual pilot program that they're going to launch? And so with that, sad news though, just to highlight that not everyone is on the same page, and sadly most people are out of their minds still, as the NHS refuses medical cannabis for children with epilepsy. No one saw that coming, or did they? Of course we have. But sadly, more families in the UK have to foot the bill, as the NHS refuses to prescribe medical cannabis for children with epilepsy. And cannabis seems to be one of the only solutions for children with epilepsy, that they take the CBD and then they're able to function without having seizures and live their lives. And so their parents can enjoy their children as children, and not as, struggling medical patients with a disease that they don't have a potential solution to, or one that they can't get, from the legal market. And so outrageous, this one from the BBC, if you wanted to pull it up, but again, just highlighting the stupidity that still reigns, but we keep fighting to chip away at that and eventually free this plant once and for all. But that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future episodes, and I will catch you on Sunday for This Week in Cannabis News. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.